Do, 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 do. Welcome to the Friends with Benefits podcast, a business podcast about revenue-generating partnerships, not a podcast about business time with friends. We're your co-hosting couple. I'm Jason.
And I'm Sam. Welcome to the show, friends. Hey, hey.
Hey.
Welcome home. You've been gone for a minute.
Yeah, it's good to be back. I have been down in Dallas, for those wondering where I've been. Probably not, but I was at the Sixth Sense Breakthrough User Conference. Fantastic show if you haven't been.
Brought back a nice cold, gave it to me. Thank you.
I think our kids gave me that before I left, and then the travel just accentuated it. But yeah, I'm feeling fine though.
I'm not.
Sorry that it was passed along. It's just one of those things.
You also brought back a really nice bag of swag for the kids, though.
Yes.
Like a whole bag.
A whole bag. It was interesting. The swag of choice, the swag du jour of events has changed. Everybody's passing out stuffies now. I brought back like 5 stuffies.
That's really beneficial when you have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old.
Yeah, you don't have to go buy any surprises. Just bring them home. So anyway, let's talk about today's guest.
Yeah, who do we have?
I think it was fun because not only is Cody Sunkel a good friend of ours and kind of a neighbor for now, but he's very much in line with kind of what we believe and how we operate as a person, if I can use that terminology.
As a people.
Yeah, he's great. I mean, he's got a little startup called Partner Fleet, which I think is fantastic. Really great partner marketplace, directory kind of thing. But more than that, he's really into peak performance and what drives humans and drives individuals, and really focuses on his self, his body, and he's kind of a freak of nature, wouldn't you say?
Undeniably so. And I think one of the most exciting things for me in this episode was we've had Cody and his wife and his brand new baby, who he likes to refer to as a legend, over for dinner. And I had no idea. So it just goes to show that you never really know a person until you truly dig in. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode with Mr. Cody Sunkel. Cody, thanks for joining us. Thanks for staying with us in Bozeman for a while. We'll miss you. Welcome to the show, friends.
Mr. Cody Sunkel from down the street. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir.
It's our first, 3 people in Bozeman. We're growing up. We're a tech hub.
We are a tech. We have our first Bozeman guest. For those who aren't familiar, Sam and I live in Bozeman, Montana. Cody Sunkel, today's guest, also lives in Bozeman, Montana. Like a mile and a half down the road?
Yeah, I think if I stand up right now, I could probably see your house.
yeah, for sure. Hello.
I think we should count this as our partner leaders chapter meeting.
Yeah, you guys, partnership leaders, you guys hear that? This is our chapter meeting. We tried to do it in person, but I wasn't technically prepared to record in person at my kitchen table. So here we are.
That's all right. We're going to have fun anyway.
Yeah, this is fantastic. Appreciate you joining us today and taking some time.
Likewise.
So, jumping right into the fun stuff, tell us who Cody Sunkel is outside of the day job before we talk about the day job.
All right. Big question for sure. And I thought about this a little bit. So I think like the people who know me best would characterize me as like just being obsessed with things, like having these waves of obsession where I just like cannot think about anything else. So I end up going really deep on, whatever I'm interested in at the time. A couple themes in my life outside of work have been movement. So, physically, like I have a lot of hobbies I was like a springboard diver. I love to mountain bike. I love to dabble with other things like parkour and capoeira and like kind of fringe stuff. And I just try to live like a lifestyle that, I'm able to enjoy myself every single day. Right.
Love that.
I'm also big on family. Got a wife, Erica, and recently had a kid. He's 4 months old. His name's Wiley. Little legend.
Cute little kid, by the way. Yeah, little legend.
Yeah, thank you.
Little legend.
And I got a golden retriever, Cooper.
That's awesome, man. No, we've being in Bozeman, we've had a chance to hang out a few times, and I can confirm that all those things are accurate and true. And we'll talk about it a bit later, but you're somewhat of a freak of nature in the fitness world, and we'll get to that hopefully. But what
I might be a little washed up though now. We'll see. Like we can
I
talk
don't
about it, but
I think legends is genetic. So once a legend, always a legend.
I was gonna say welcome to parenthood, but yeah, you know, we can go with once a legend.
That too.
What is it? What is it that you're kind of obsessed with right now?
Oh, honestly, right now, I have a camper van. I'm actually moving. Got a lot going on in my life, but the camper van is only a 2-seater, and so I need to, now that I have a kid, need to upgrade to something with more seats. So I'm obsessing over truck campers right now.
Okay.
So it's that and mountain biking. I'm lucky to live right next to my favorite mountain bike trail in existence, Leverage Canyon in Bozeman. And so I can pedal out from my front door and go ride. And it's been raining a lot here, which is actually great for the trails. The dirt just gets so tacky and fun to ride. So I would say those are the two things on my mind right now.
That's
Love
awesome.
it. There was snow on top of those mountains this morning.
Yeah, it's still there. I can see it right now.
Welcome to getting out of here just in time.
Yeah, and moving to California. For those of you that don't know Cody, or maybe what he does for a day job, Cody, can you tell us what Partner Fleet is?
Yeah, definitely. So Partner Fleet is an ecosystem marketplace platform. So, you know, if you think about like the big marketplaces that are out there in the SaaS world, like the Salesforce App Exchange, the HubSpot Marketplace, even like AWS Marketplace and the hyperscalers, those were all built in-house, requiring massive development efforts to make to bring them to fruition, right? So we kind of, like my co-founder and I, Kenny Brown, you know, we saw the opportunity for this when we were in partnerships ourselves. We were leading teams, and we're trying to figure out how to scale our programs. And we recognized that there was a massive gap in terms of, you know, productized solutions available to us to be able to run that marketplace play and power an entire ecosystem of partners. And so Kenny had the idea to go build this. You know, his background, he was the first engineering hire at G2. So G2 is a marketplace essentially of like 100,000 SaaS listings, right? Or software listings. And so he got really good background and understanding about marketplaces. And so he went out and built the platform. And, you know, and that was after we worked together at our previous company. And so essentially that's what we're trying to do is plug that gap that's in the market and give sort of democratized the ability to, you know, have an ecosystem marketplace without having to sink in millions of dollars and years of development on it.
Let's dig into that gap a little bit more. Like I've been in the space and used some of these before. Like, what gaps specifically did you guys see, and what gaps were you learning about in the market?
Yeah, so at the time, you know, Kenny and I were at a company called Daxco, which was comprised of like 11 different brands, 5 core platforms in the gym management software space and fitness tech. And so I was primarily with the brand called Zen Planner. It's an SMB brand. You know, we're supporting CrossFit boxes or CrossFit gyms, yoga studios, martial arts academies, all of that. And I was doing partnerships with gym affiliations and martial arts affiliations and franchises and consulting groups primarily. So they became, you know, solutions partners for us, but also just major referral channels. And then Kenny was hired to like, you know, build out our tech partner ecosystem, right? So he was on a different side of the business, but we kind of saw each other from across the way and said, hey, we're both doing partnerships. We should do this together instead of separate. What do we need? Like, what's the vision? So we kind of created this shared vision. And then we recognized the gap of technology available to us. We were trying to kind of duct tape the existing tools together that we already had subscribed to at Daxco and do that whole thing that like pretty much every partnership professional has to do at some point up to this point, right? And so we ended up coming up with like a big RFP with all the checklist items that we wanted. based on user stories and just things that we needed to accomplish within our program. And we took that out to all the PRMs and all the available partner tech and ticked the boxes that were available to us at the time. And honestly, like as more of a channel guy, my side of the RFP had a lot of check marks. There are some good PRMs out there. There was account mapping was like coming of age during that time. But then when you look at tech partnerships and you look at marketplace capabilities, I mean, literally we couldn't find anything. And, so Kenny ended up building a marketplace for Daxco, like on nights and weekends. Being an engineer, he's like, I'll try to do it myself. And, it was kind of a side project for him. It ended up launching as the Daxco Exchange, which was great. But then he obviously knew that like other companies need that, right? So that's the gap that we're trying to plug.
Love it. So kind of went from idea internally, which is kind of always the best way to start building something, right? To now launching and scaling this company. So like, was there a particular moment where you guys were like, let's do this, let's go all in? And so I remember when Cody decided to leave and go start it, or sorry, Kenny decided to leave and go start it, and was like, hey, I got this idea. And I was like, okay, cool. So like, what was the moment where you both were like, yeah, this is it, let's leave our day jobs, our safety nets, and go start this thing?
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, like I went on a sabbatical at Daxco because I was there for a long time. I got a sabbatical, and I came back to a message from Kenny. Hey man, sorry to let you know this, but I'm actually leaving Daxco. Like my last day is blah, blah, blah. And I was like, Kenny, no, don't do this to me, man. We had something good going. So he didn't even tell me what he was going to do for like 6, 7, 8 months, something like that. And then, so he got the product built to a point where I think he was happy to socialize it with a few people. And he, and I told him like, hey, if there's ever an opportunity to work together again, I would love to, like it's been great working with you. He's super smart, got the same vision. So, we reconnected. He told me what he was doing, and I was excited because I knew the need was there. I had always had this entrepreneurial itch, and I just never knew what that jumping off point would be for me from an entrepreneurial standpoint. And it seemed like a perfect opportunity. And so once he kind of like gave me the rundown, I was bought in quickly, but I had some more things to wrap up at Daxco that I was working on. I had just gotten promoted. It was kind of a weird time to just jump ship, but it was worth doing, and I'm glad I did it. It's been awesome.
Okay, so you've been at it for 2 years now, is that right?
Yep.
2-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So knowing what you know now, what have been some of the biggest challenges of startup life, and what do you wish you would have known before you started?
Yeah, I mean, the cool thing is that we knew the problem pretty intimately, right? But like, when I joined, the plan was like, we're immediately selling. And we're selling a product that's like beta state, MVP state. And I was used to selling a product that wasn't fully baked, to be honest. Like I was selling a franchise gym
Aren't we
management
all?
platform. Yeah. That didn't exist, right? And we were selling that, building on the fly, but that's always a hard thing to do. And you're making a leap of faith as well. So a big part of it for me, a challenge early on, like I knew the problem, I knew the people being in partnerships, but I didn't know if I was cut out for being a SaaS founder and what all would that entail. So I think that was a big hurdle, talking to our investors, trying to get early adopters on board and actually have them pay us and not just like give it away and get feedback and stuff. So we were charging from day one. And then, honestly, like as we matured, and probably a lot of the listeners of this podcast are going to be familiar. I mean, partnerships really doesn't have budget. You're pitching for budget all the time. So for us, it ended up being a thing where the champions that we're working with at the companies that are excited about launching a marketplace and all that, they have to go get budget for their, for the program. and then they have to socialize it with their, their marketing team and their product team and all of that. So sort of decision by committee. And those were cruxes for us, and still are, to be honest, like especially in the 2023 landscape, it's still a challenge.
That was going to be one of my questions to you of like, who is your typical buyer? Because obviously partner people see the value in this, but you just said it. Budget is hard to come by. So it really is, I'm assuming building those partnerships with marketing, and here's how you're going to get more leads. Here's how you're going to get more product, integrations and whatnot. So interesting.
Yeah.
You've kind of mentioned something prior to recording, as we were going through some stuff, but you said, can we build something lovable? I want to kind of expand on that a little bit as a startup, as someone who's thinking about the product first and actually trying to sell something new. Like, what does that look like, from you guys' perspective, and really trying to be focused on building something lovable? I love that language, that verbiage. Like, how do you guys think about that? How do you wake up in the mornings and say, all right, how do we build something lovable, and how do you put that into action?
Totally. Yeah. Initially I said valuable, but then I changed it to lovable, because valuable is not enough, right? Like if you're going to build a SaaS company that can scale, and that can drive network effects and word of mouth and all of that, it has to be lovable. And so what that means to me is, first and foremost, it's solving a big problem that people have. Because you can be, to be honest, like you can have a overall poor user experience, but solve a big problem, and people are going to deal with inconvenience. Think about Salesforce, right? Like, does anyone actually love to use Salesforce? I don't know.
I do.
Nope.
Okay, fair enough. Yes, Sam, I'm sorry. I mean, here's the deal, though. It's the most valuable CRM that's out there because it solves really big problems. So, I got to a point where I liked to use Salesforce also, but the user experience is still a little challenging. And so first and foremost is like, let's solve a big problem. But then it's focused on, for us, like we have a bunch of different stakeholders that use the product. So we have our customers who they stand up the marketplace, they configure it, all of that stuff. So we want those flows to be simple, easy. A big part of our whole approach is that we want everything to be out of the box, because the incumbents competitors is very professional service, very customization focused, and ours is meant to be out of the box. So that's a big factor. And then we also have the partners who log into the system. Like they don't get the benefit of us holding their hand through the process. So that whole workflow has to be super simple, easy, no additional support needed. And then ultimately you have the end customer that's going in, they're discovering integrations, discovering partners to work with. So they need a seamless discovery experience, and they need the ability to connect, whether that's install an integration, whether that's, connect with a partner directly, schedule a meeting with their team. Those whole workflows and actions that need to be taken should be very simple. And I think if you kind of have all of those components, then you're on the path toward lovable.
On the
like
path
that.
to lovable.
Yeah.
So you kind of just talked about this, but twofold. So on this podcast, we like to talk about the value of relationships and how that builds into partnerships. So we did a bunch of research. You guys have some pretty great blogs. So if you want to know more about Marketplace, check out the Partner Fleet blog. They have a lot of great stuff. But one of them said it's a hands-off way to continually promote your partners and to leads who are looking to buy. So essentially it's like a Rolodex of integrations and partners. So I want to dive into this really quickly because we all know and love Justin Zimmerman, and I think he coined the phrase that integrations don't equal partnerships. So I want to hear your opinion on how you see having a directory of integrations couples with actually having a partner strategy and the relational side of building those partnerships out.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with Justin. here's the thing. I don't think you need partnerships to have an ecosystem either. Like, I think partnerships are more relational in nature. However, like, you can have a user base that if you have an integration, they're going to adopt it no matter what, because it's that high of demand. It's going to add that much value. So you can have like a no touch relationship essentially that is going to value every side of this, both of the partners and the end user. And the other thing is, like, I think ecosystem goes beyond partnerships, because I think of it as all the little points of influence that impact a buyer or a customer a lot of times. And honestly, like, I don't know if the majority of those points of influence are via partnerships. I think a lot of those points of influence have opportunity to become partnerships and strengthen the level of influence that they're driving for your brand. But if you think about, like, reviews are part of it, and like, and third party social proof and stuff like that. I think that's all part of the equation. So being like more of a revenue executive, I guess it's not solely focused on partnerships. I try to look at all those points of influence and I consider that the ecosystem. But then I think of like partnerships and the relationship aspect of a layer on top that can drive a ton of extra value and help, when people lean into the partnership more is really when like the magic is created and you start to create reciprocity, and you start to create this like really impactful flywheel that can be ultimately transformative for the business. And so, like, being someone who focuses on marketplaces, a lot of that is self-service and no touch, because you're dealing with long tail partnerships and big ecosystems where you couldn't possibly have a relationship with everyone. And so there's this kind of like balance of art and science that needs to take place. And I actually think that we're in this pivotal point in time where, traditionally partnerships has been more of an art, and now we're introducing science because we have better tools, we have better automation, like we have best practices and things like that. So that's sort of my take on it.
I love where you just went there, the art and science concept. I think it's so true. And I think that there's a time and a place for both. And I think as an industry, we're figuring that out. I mean, with what you're building, with what Rob's building, with super glue, it's like, how do we bring in the automation while not losing the human element of this? And then to your point too, I think, what do we call it? The dark funnel. Is that right? Did I just make that up?
Yeah.
Or is that true?
Yeah. Dark funnel, dark social.
There's so much going on behind the scenes with these buyers that it's impossible to get like a full perspective on that, but you have to be there in all of these places.
Agreed.
Yeah, 100%. And you're totally right. Like, it's been an art up until this point, right? But now we're starting to see the scientists move in, and I think what's his name, Tyler from PartnerStack calls it, math people are moving in, right, to the role, and really starting to get it and drive it forward from like the data and the the science side of the house. So it's growing. Our little world of partnerships is growing up. It's becoming a little bit more mature. And you made a good point that something I want to kind of dig into is like, how this becomes a flywheel that's impactful to the business, right? Getting more to the science side of the house, and you're actually being more strategic in how you're building out your program, and instituting a marketplace is one of those moves that becomes more of a, a front and center play. I think I read somewhere, maybe it was from Sunir, maybe you, I can't remember anymore, but your marketplace is most often a top 3 visited page within your website, right? So if that's the case, like, how are you seeing the best in the business utilizing a marketplace to really drive impact to the business, whether it be from the sales side of the house or the marketing side of the house?
Yeah. We have a few really good customer examples that we can pull from. And I think the overarching theme here is that you can string your marketplace through all of your revenue activities. Like, if you're, looking at it from a marketing standpoint, let's say you have a marketplace that has 200 listings in it, partners, it could be solutions partners, it could be integrations, etc. But those are all pages to promote yourself and your partners equally. right? And
Right.
so the smart companies will have an evergreen like marketing strategy essentially for their marketplace, and they string it into like all the marketing that they do. So I saw Sales Loft the other day, they're launching a new product called Rhythm.
Yep.
And a big part of that is the integrations that they have with like, Vidyard and some of these other strategic partners for them. And so they're going to market together, and they're sending traffic to their partner listings in their marketplace. That's obviously, that we're powering, but they've configured, they've added all the content. And so they drive massive traffic to their marketplace. I'm blown away. They're also driving conversions. And so that could be a conversion for, them, like Sales Loft, or it could be a conversion for their partner. And the cool thing is you can drive like reciprocity from that, because if you have this evergreen marketplace marketing playbook, you're continuing to drive traffic there. You're creating value for your partners. They, even though you're not doing direct partner marketing campaigns with them every time, right? You are still driving traffic their way. You're driving leads and business for them. So they're like, hey, this is working. Let's lean in more. And then you start getting that reciprocity flywheel going.
How are you
Similar,
seeing them drive traffic to those pages? Like, or is there anything in particular that they're doing differently in the market?
yeah. So I think a lot of times, like people just stand up a marketplace, link to it on their website, and then just continuously drive traffic to their website, which can also work because
Right.
like integrations are a top 3 buyer consideration in SaaS now. And so it's one of the things that people are most interested in. So just driving people to your homepage, honestly, on your marketing site is like a viable way to, to drive traffic to your marketplace ultimately. But I think when people go further, it's like, when you do co-marketing activities like webinars, guest blogs, things like that, are you then, sending that traffic and audience to the listing pages within the marketplace, and they can see the better together stories there, and that can be really exciting for the visitor. I saw SalesLoft the other day; they were promoting their Vidyard partnership on LinkedIn as well, and so it's basically all the standard marketing activities that you would do anyway, but just utilizing the marketplace pages, as kind of that landing spot for the traffic.
I'm
Yeah.
curious how much of your sales pitch, and if you don't want to get into it here, you don't have to, but like what I'm hearing here is, it's funny, all these conversations are coming together. It's like partnerships are often siloed from marketing and sales. But the way you're approaching marketplace and the way we should all be approaching partnerships is it makes everything better. Even like your marketing campaigns, it can create more streamlined leads for your sales teams to follow up on. So in a way, you're helping partner teams like become more integrated with the org through your marketplaces. Is that something you actually go to market with?
For sure, for sure. Like we have, because, okay, so it's really weird. I'm about to publish with our head of marketing, Kelsey Johnson, a blog about like how you monetize your marketplace. And there are so many different options and ways that marketplaces drive value. It makes it challenging, to be honest. But it's also the reason why marketplaces are so valuable, because every team in the business can benefit from a marketplace. Sales, it becomes sales enablement. Marketing, it becomes a really strong, marketing asset. Customer success, they're driving adoption of integrations and partners. It makes them stickier. It makes them easy to renew. Product gets, increased adoption as well. So like if you look at our ROI calculator, it's really complex. And it does mean that partnerships gets involved with all of those other teams to show them how they can help drive value for their teams and help them hit their KPIs. But honestly, like the CMO, the chief product officer nowadays, is mostly the one who's signing off on the marketplace.
Mm-hmm. I'm not
Yeah.
surprised by that. There's
Yeah.
no more
And
of the sales team going, who's our partner again?
Yeah.
Yeah. No excuses. But also too, I think like for those marketplaces to be as effective as possible, it requires, the partner team to do their job of like being super well connected to the teams that are actually using it. A funny story, when I was at Drift, like we swapped out the marketplace and we put up a new website, went with a new vendor. This was pre-partner fleet days. And we were down for about a week, we'll call it. And the sales team was in an uproar about where's the marketplace. And shame on me, I had no clue that the sales team was actually using that within their pitches, within their emails. Like, no one ever communicated to me that we actually use this. I just thought it was a site that nobody used. So after that, I was like, okay, well, we're actually doing something here. So let's think about how we can drive more traffic to it. So once we got the new page up and running, we immediately got in with marketing. It's like, hey, how are you guys using this if sales is using it this way? And marketing wasn't even thinking about it at all. So it became, to your point, like a good opportunity to add to the flywheel that I was building. And we started running these ABM campaigns. We built out better pages with our partner within that marketplace, and became a really good opportunity to drive traffic to, measure that traffic, and put specific chat bots on those pages as well to engage that traffic that was landing on that site. So 100%. Seeing it firsthand how it becomes a great flywheel, and can't encourage that enough, to use those pages, and, working with someone like yourself who's, monitoring and providing that level of traffic and insights to those pages and being able to build on top of it. So it's a good play if done right. Requires collaboration though.
Yeah, you've got a good experience there, and appreciate the kind words.
Yeah, man, I like what you guys are doing, so happy to support. Let's go back to Cody Sunkel a little bit. I want to know a little bit more about, like, all these obsessions that have led to career paths. I feel like you and I are very similar in this regard. I always joke that I've had 4 careers, because I also get very obsessed with what I'm working on and doing. But talk to me about your career path of, like, what's led you up to now co-founder, VP of growth at Partner Fleet.
Yeah. I feel like I took a little bit of a roundabout way into my career, right? Like I honestly was apprehensive about getting into the business world. I was kind of like anti-corporate in a pretty big way when I was growing up. And I ended up, so I studied at Cal, and I was like interested in business, but didn't really want to do the normal business thing. And so I ended up creating sort of my own focus for my major, which was all about like social entrepreneurship and benefit corporations. So if you think about, like, a benefit corporation is a company that exists to, create profits, sure, but also to create some sort of impact, some social impact, environmental impact, like some benefit that's outside of just making money. I was very drawn to that idea. One of my inspirations early on was Yvon Chouinard, a Patagonia guy. Yeah. He had a book out there, Let My People Go Surfing. I read that thing in college, and I was like, wow, this is it's awesome. I would recommend it if you want more than just a career to make money. But it's like, why are we in business? Let's do something more than that. And he kind of coined this term, like the reluctant businessman, I think. And I mean, that just resonated for me. So I wrote my thesis on.
That's me.
Yeah, exactly.
You wrote your thesis on it. I love it.
Yeah, I wrote, on that. And I had done some tech internships in San Francisco through college. I was also a springboard diver. I didn't, I was like washed up before I even started, honestly. I like got into college, redshirted 1 year, and then quit.
That's what you did in college. So we're not just talking like hobby at the public pool here.
No, like I
okay.
I like got into it in high school. I was a gymnast when I was young, and yeah, so I got to a level where I could get in, to school for it, but I was never going to be NCAA champ or an Olympian or anything. My friends were, and I was like, there's no way I'm getting there. So, but anyway, after I quit diving, I got into gymnastics, strength training, and because I remember being in gymnastics and just being strong, like you see the people in the Olympics and they're doing all the crazy stuff on the rings. I was like, if I can get a sliver of that again, that would be pretty cool. So I had this like tech experience with internships, and I had this passion for fitness and strength training. Started getting involved in the CrossFit world, and gymnastics is a third of the CrossFit methodology. So I started coaching classes ultimately after, everyone was like, how do you do this stuff? Like there was no supply for for material and coaching around gymnastics within CrossFit at the time. And so I started doing some seminars and classes and things like that. Well, at a certain point, I'm like, this ain't paying the bills. But it was cool. I got to coach, high level CrossFit Games athletes. It's like people at the tippy top world champ competitors.
Wow.
But it wasn't paying the bills. So then I found a job for an SDR position at Zen Planner. They did gym management software for CrossFit gyms and martial arts. And so it was
Beautiful
a perfect,
transition.
yeah, perfect. I actually ended up working with a lot of the same people who I knew from coaching in the business world now. And, after maybe 5 years in, 6 years into that job, we ended up doing a partnership with CrossFit headquarters, which was like a, pretty cool thing for me. But yeah, so SDR, managed the SDR team for 3 years there, and then sales director, sat on the product leadership team for Zen Planner. We got acquired by Daxco. Then I shifted into partnerships. We saw a bigger opportunity there, and started doing those franchise deals and everything, which, in a world of like $2,000 ACVs for these small gyms, they're paying like $150, $200 a month. We had 500,000, like $500,000 partnerships with some of these affiliations and franchises. And I just heard one of them's worth $1.5 million now. So stuff like that. Right. And that was sort of my journey, a little bit of a roundabout way, but I think with partnerships, what pulled me in is I didn't have to be the typical business guy. Like there's cooperation and there's like collaboration, and let's do this thing together and not be like cutthroat and what you think of traditional like business, or what I did at least. It was more about collaboration and how can we be better together. And I really was drawn to that.
Yeah, you got to be the reluctant businessman after all, who got to pull in the knowledge, network, and relationships that you'd built via your CrossFit days.
True. Yeah.
So
Okay,
exactly.
so quick shout out, because as listeners know, we like to do a lot of research before so we can have more than surface level conversations. Everybody do yourself a favor and go to Cody's YouTube channel, because it's like no joke. He is so freaking strong. This stuff is unbelievable. I had no idea. And this just goes to show you've been to our house for dinner and I had no idea. So you never know who you're talking to.
I mean,
I think it all
okay.
correlates though, because like you were a trainer, you've been part of teams, all of those types of things come together in building partnerships and being successful at the role. So I don't know, sounds roundabout, but I think everybody's roundabout in partnerships.
And that's the
Yeah.
cool thing, honestly, is like everyone's got a cool, unique story in partnerships. And people come from all different walks of life and from all different like career backgrounds and get into partnerships. So you have such a variety of experiences that just keep things really interesting. It's not like one standard kind of stamped out career path.
No
Yeah,
doubt.
I did read one really interesting blog from you, and we'll move on. I think this was during your Zen Planner days, but you talked about the need and the necessity to build a foundation as a trainer in a box, like a athlete at a CrossFit gym, right? And because if you don't have that foundation, then you're prone to injury. And I've tried CrossFit a few times, and I think both few times I've gotten injured. And you made the correlation between that. If you don't have that foundation, if you don't really get built up to the point of being that athlete, then you cancel your membership, and that becomes a churn member for that gym, right? So now
Yep.
you kind of have that knowledge and that experience of like how to actually train and enable and build up your customers to prevent that level of churn, which is incredibly necessary in both partnerships and as a founder. So like I really appreciate that post. Like, I've never thought about it from a gym's perspective, right? And also how you can make that correlation between that and what you're doing now.
Yeah. Man, you guys dug deep. Appreciate
Way
that.
deep. Yeah. I also asked ChatGPT how to interview you, and it didn't provide anything. So don't try that on Cody Sunkel's Partner Fleet, because it just thinks Partner Fleet runs a fleet of trucks.
Yeah, that's fair. We get that a lot, actually.
We tried it.
I love
So,
that though, Jay. Really quickly, I mean, like I did CrossFit for years, and I remember when I first went to the gym, I would get so frustrated because the trainers wouldn't let me do like whatever the class was doing yet because I didn't have my form correctly or I didn't, I wasn't strong enough, whatever it was. But that all makes total sense now, and relating to the partner side, you got to help people crawl, walk, run. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you're setting yourself up for failure, really.
yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. I think CrossFit is actually a good analogy because people, especially like ex-athletes, they'll dive in and go way too hard. I mean,
Yeah.
actually, the partner manager from Zen Planner who really established the program, he was a jiu-jitsu guy. He's now a jiu-jitsu black belt, really high-level martial artist, and he's actually a great case study on relationship building for partnerships. By the way, Chris Mearswack.
Let's get him on the podcast.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. He runs an academy now, so he's out of the SaaS world. But anyway, he jumped into CrossFit one day, and he's such an athlete. He just went hard like an animal, and then he got injured from it. He got rhabdomyolysis or whatever you call it, and that's what can happen, right? And I think a lot of people will try to they'll try to go in too quickly and commit too much in a partnership early on before they've set up the foundation, before they've like really developed a relationship, and tried to like make sure that they have their ducks in a row. And I think you can spin your wheels and, waste a lot of time and energy, resources, etc. by doing that. And I think it's worth calling out that like, yeah, you got to build the foundation, you got to build these relationships and make sure that there is reciprocity and there is goodwill created and you're kind of matching and mirroring each other.
100% and spot on, especially on the partnership track. Is like, we talk a lot about having, value out first. And from a, trainer's perspective, like, my early days of doing CrossFit, I would have really appreciated someone saying like, okay, let's slow your roll a little bit. Let's, make sure that you're doing the right things first. Let us give you some value to make you the best athlete instead of just, going ham and throwing my back out, as a young lad and, getting a bad taste for CrossFit. I didn't learn that until like our friends at Metabolic in Charlotte taught me that. Shout out Metabolic. But learned that after that, like, ease into it. And the same thing is so true for these partnerships that we're running.
Totally.
So yeah, speaking of all this
Chris
training,
sorry, I just got to call this out. Chris is going to be pissed for me outing him like that, telling everyone he got rhabdo from CrossFit. But I'm sorry, Chris.
It happens.
I also talked you up. So hopefully we're balanced out.
I think I've tried CrossFit 2 or 3 times, and each time it's like something happens where they're my back out or a leg. And this was when I was young, so I was just trying to go too much, too soon. So don't worry, Chris. Totally. It happens to both of us. Like I'm still getting injured in my garage.
Yep.
So last time you and I we went for a hike, did a little ruck. For those who aren't familiar, we threw like 35, 40 pounds in a backpack and hiked 8 miles up a mountain. And we got on this track around like peak performance. And I feel like you and I are kind of on a similar journey in this game of peak performance and pursuing like our best selves, figuring out like what that looks like from a physical perspective, mental perspective, and just all around, and you becoming the best whole version of ourselves. Like how do you right now as a new dad, like prioritize your physical health, and how do you see that impacts your mental health and everything else that you're doing?
Yeah, I love this topic. For me, honestly, coming from the fitness world, it's been a lot of it's been second nature. I've been passionate about it for a long time. But I struggle still, especially now being in more of like I'm not in the fitness world. I'm not surrounded by it every day like I was even while I was at Zen Planner and Daxco. And I think it comes down to habit creation for me big time. I obviously, I love to do like I have hobbies that are physical, that are healthy. And that's, I think, key. If you have hobbies and you're obsessed, you're thinking about this stuff all the time, you're going to naturally do it. But you still need those habits to like trigger that every day. And so a lot of times I'll be sitting through a work day on 8 Zoom calls or whatever it is. And then at the end of the day, I feel kind of tired. I'm not motivated. So I need something to just like jumpstart me and say like, get the wheels turning. Okay, I'm going to do something active today. For me, it's little things like if I can at least do my warm up, like I have sort of a standard warm up for that I do before I train. If I can do that, it gets everything moving, and maybe I'll have a better shot at working out or going on a bike ride or whatever. But even if I just do the warm up, I've done something good for myself that day. And that's just like light yoga like type movement through range of motion and all of that. So I feel like that's a success if I get the warm up, but usually it leads to more. And so the habit creation is big there. And I think once you get like into a little bit of a pattern and you're starting to think about, okay, I want to be active or whatever it is, then you also start to easily think about like the other aspects of health, my nutrition, my sleep. I have a Whoop. I'm for the people watching video. There's my Whoop. It helps me track my sleep, make sure that's dialed in. Also, like, do I have the minimum threshold of activity through a day that I think is healthy for me? So that's sort of how I look at it, is like, what are those small little habits that lead to more throughout the day?
Yeah. I like the approach of just getting started. Like, it reminds me of, I saw an interview a while back with Aaron Rodgers, and I always recall this, is like, what's your first move in a game? And it's like, I want to complete, I focus on completing like a 5-yard pass, just getting that initial motion, getting it going, getting back into the game, getting the head right. And then from there I can go deep or I can do whatever, but like just accomplish that one little thing to get started. And I think that's even in motion in like Atomic Habits and all these high performers.
Yep.
Like, just freaking get started. Just start wherever you've got to,
Yeah.
So I think that's a incredible, word of advice. One thing I did hear recently on a podcast, and I think it was with Arthur Brooks, if I recall, he's talking about and I never even thought about it this way, but when you start going down this physical health journey, when you start thinking about the body, the fitness, right, what you're saying just cascades into nutritional and sleep and everything else. But he also talks about how it cascades into, your mental health and how you're thinking about yourself and how you're starting to move along this journey in what, we call here peak performance. But then also how that begins to cascade into everything you're doing in work, life, family, and how it makes everything better. But it starts with that one, again, that one starting point, right? So do you kind of see that to be true in your life, like starting with, physical health into mental, into work, into family, just kind of keeps you firing?
Oh, for sure. And part of it is, I don't know, like if I have a standard for myself that I feel bad if I don't hit it on any given day, right? Like I have sort of a threshold where I'm like, okay, that was a good day. And it's been really challenging, frankly, with a newborn,
Oh, yeah.
4 months old right now. Like I said, he's a legend, so it's all good. But my wife she's still on maternity leave, so she hangs out with him all day. And then when I get done with work, I don't want to just ditch her and go on a mountain bike ride or go work out or anything. Like, she needs some relief. And so I think, we'll move him into daycare pretty soon, but that's been a big challenge for me. Like my hobbies and my habits have been thrown off. But when I do take the time to do something, no matter how small, I feel like, okay, you did it. Like, I can feel good about myself, and that bleeds into being more tolerant, being, more excited to be hanging out with my little boy and like things like that, where I'm not feeling like, oh, I got to go do something. I'm feeling like I can be present in the moment and just generally be a better person.
Yeah.
So I definitely feel that. Yeah.
And it makes all the difference in the world for me. And I know the same for you, Sam.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, Jason bought me a Garmin here it is, for my birthday. And I used to be super physically active, and we've since had 2 kids. And so I feel that so much. Our kids are 2 and 4. They are not 4 months old. But it's very easy, like how your lifestyle changes, and then all of a sudden something that defined you as, I was a power lifter. I am nowhere near a power lifter now, but it is really interesting paying attention to those things and then having to reinsert these habits into your life. Like, in full transparency, Jason actually laughs at me, but like on my Garmin, my stress for the last few weeks has been like, this is really embarrassing to announce, but between 60 and 90 all day long, every day. It's on a scale of 1 to 100 for those of you that
It's been pretty bad.
And for me, I'm like, no, I'm fine. But having that data point has been really interesting to be like, no, you're not. Like, go sit down, go do some yoga, go for a walk, reclaim your life. And like, it does make an impact across the board. Like, I'm like, no, I have to be present with the kids. Well, I'm not, because I'm irritable, I'm overly stressed, all these things add up if you just don't take care of yourself. So
Yeah. I had a thought recently that I've been trying to keep at the forefront of my mind, but like people who are busy, which is most of us, let's say, they're like, oh, how do you have so much time to ride your bike or go work out or, do whatever it is that is recreational for you, or just like these healthy hobbies, because you have kids, you have a job, etc. But I think it should be more of like, oh, wow, how do you have this much time to work? Because you have all these other obligations. You have to work out, ride your bike. You have your family, like that should compress the amount of time that you work rather than the opposite. And that's easier said than done, of course, especially, I mean, I signed up to be a SaaS founder. Like, I'm signing up to work a lot. However, this is the other thing. Like, I think if you do it right as a founder, you don't need to put yourself into a position where you're working 60 to 80 hours a week, like, I still want to get everything I need to done, grow the company rapidly, support my team, all the stuff that I need to do as a founder in a 40-hour week. And that's usually not realistic, but that's what I'm striving for still,
Yeah, I mean, start these companies to kind of control our own time and destiny, and most people just end up losing all of their time and, access to what really matters to them as a person. I think it's a good perspective on priority.
For sure. Yep.
Cool. Well, this has been awesome. I think we can bring this home. We like to try to take it more of a fun route to close here. We asked this question a few weeks ago, and I just loved it. We got a great answer, so I'm gonna throw it your way. So if you, Cody Sunkel, were a packaged action figure that was sold at a toy store or Amazon, like, what would we don't want to call it a weapon, but what would your benefit be?
Superpower.
What would your superpower be that you came with inside of the package?
Oh, it's funny. I just had this funny email string with this guy who's interested in my van. His last name is Cody, and he gave me the whole background on the name Cody. But one thing he said is that his wife tried to name his son Tarzan. And I have a very, which is hilarious, right? But talk
about legend.
Yeah. I've always, I've always had this acrobatic nature to me, and so swinging on vines from a tree sounds pretty cool. So I might make that my,
I love it.
superpower.
Yeah.
Nice.
Do you come with a vine that connects and attaches to everything, kind of almost like a lasso, Indiana Jones style?
Yep, there we go. We just, swing from anything. You can toss it over, I guess.
Organic Spider-Man. I like it.
Yep.
So good.
It's a good question.
Yeah, something to think about. Justin Gray had a good one. His was, I would come with relationship rays. Basically, what's his name from X-Men, just shooting out relationship rays.
Nice. That's sweet.
All right. Well, Cody, thank you. I feel this way at the end of all of these conversations, that we could continue to talk for forever. So how about this? You just come over for dinner again before you leave, and we'll continue the conversation.
I'm there.
Awesome.
I'm there.
Perfect. Friends, thanks so much for joining us yet again. We appreciate you immensely, and we'll talk to you next time.
See y'all later.